Iran has been firing ballistic missiles at Israel every day since February 28th, but something changed in the pattern this week, and the change is more dangerous than the volume of launches suggests. Iran shifted from large coordinated salvos of dozens of missiles at once to a new tactic that Israel's defense establishment is openly describing as a deliberate strategy: cluster warhead missiles aimed directly at civilian population centers. Israel's defense establishment confirmed on Thursday that Iran has fired at least 6 cluster warhead missiles at Israeli population centers since the war began, and officials stated explicitly they believe this trend will continue in the coming days. Understanding what a cluster warhead actually does in an urban environment is essential to understanding why this development is being treated with a level of alarm that goes beyond the confirmed casualty numbers. A cluster missile does not detonate as a single warhead. The missile's warhead opens during its descent and disperses submunitions, smaller explosive devices, across a wide area. Each submunition carries approximately 2.5 kilograms of explosives. A single cluster missile can spread these submunitions across several city blocks simultaneously. The reason this matters in a city like Tel Aviv is threefold. First, the dispersal pattern is indiscriminate. It cannot distinguish between a military target and a residential building or a street full of people. Second, it saturates an area too wide for Iron Dome's point defense interception model to fully address. Iron Dome is designed to intercept the missile before warhead separation. If that interception fails and the warhead separates over a populated area, the submunitions rain down across a wide radius with no further opportunity for interception. Third, cluster munitions leave unexploded ordnance, submunitions that did not detonate on impact, scattered across civilian areas for days or weeks after an attack, creating an ongoing danger for anyone moving through affected neighborhoods. On Tuesday, March 3rd, submunitions from a cluster bomb warhead struck several locations across central Israel and wounded 12 people. Megan David Adam, Israel's emergency medical service, confirmed treating a woman in her 40s in moderate condition from blast injuries and 4 others with injuries from glass shards and pressure waves. The IDF confirmed the cluster warhead impact across multiple locations in central Israel in a single attack. On Thursday, March 5th, footage circulated widely online showing what appeared to be a cluster munition breaking apart into small bomblets that fell across a section of central Israel, sparking a blaze. No injuries were reported in that specific attack, but the footage visually confirmed the submunition dispersal pattern over a populated area in a way that no official statement could match for impact. The air raid picture across Israel on day 6 is relentless, in a way that the casualty numbers alone do not fully capture. Sirens blared repeatedly throughout Thursday in areas including Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. A single ballistic missile, even one that is ultimately intercepted, triggers warning alerts across a wide geographic area, sending millions of people scrambling to shelters multiple times per day. By Thursday, the Homefront Command had only just lifted some restrictions on businesses after 6 days of continuous missile alerts. Ben Gurion International Airport opened for limited repatriation flights after being shut all week. Not because the threat had been removed, but because the alternative of hundreds of thousands of Israelis stranded abroad indefinitely was no longer manageable. El Al Airlines began assigning stranded Israeli passengers to recovery flights home, while stating outbound flights were still not operating. The tactical picture behind Iran's missile campaign is where the real story of Israeli air defense struggles becomes clear. IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General IDF Zamir stated publicly on Thursday that Israeli and US strikes have destroyed 80% of Iran's air defense systems and 60% of its above-ground missile launchers since February 28th. He added the precise qualifier that defines the problem: the threat has not yet been removed. Hours after he said those words, a fresh ballistic missile attack, including a cluster warhead, struck central Israel, caused a fire and damaged property. Iran's reduced launch capability is real and confirmed. Iran's ability to still get missiles through despite that reduction is equally real and equally confirmed. The mechanics of why Iran is still getting missiles through despite losing 60% of its launchers lies in the tactical shift analysts have been tracking since day 3. Iran is no longer attempting to overwhelm Israeli air defenses with mass simultaneous salvos of 30 to 50 missiles at once, the tactic it used in April and October 2024 and in the June 2025 12-day war. Instead, it is launching smaller volleys more frequently, staggered by minutes, targeting different parts of the country in rapid succession. The IDF's own assessment is that Iran is struggling to coordinate large simultaneous attacks because the constant US and Israeli strike campaign against its launchers makes it extremely difficult to muster enough operational launchers at the same time. Every launcher destroyed is not replaced. The hunting of Iran's mobile launch systems is ongoing and is measurably degrading Iran's large salvo capability. But the smaller volley tactic has its own logic that is not simply a reflection of degraded capability. Frequent smaller launches keep Israel's entire air defense network in a state of continuous activation. Iron Dome batteries have a finite number of interceptor missiles loaded at any given time. Continuous launches force continuous interceptions. The more interceptors Israel expends on smaller attacks, the more its inventory is depleted for a potential future mass launch. Additionally, the staggered timing of launches targeting different geographic areas simultaneously strains the coordination of Israel's layered defense architecture: Iron Dome for short-range threats, David's Sling for medium-range, Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 for ballistic missiles at altitude. Managing all three layers simultaneously against continuous incoming threats from multiple directions is operationally taxing in a way that a single large attack, however intense, is not. The cluster warhead specifically targets a gap in that layered architecture. Israel's most effective interception point for ballistic missiles is at high altitude before re-entry using arrow systems. Interception at that stage neutralizes the entire warhead. The cluster warhead exploits what happens when that high altitude interception fails. The warhead separates during descent and the submunitions dispersal begins in the lower atmosphere at a stage where Iron Dome interception geometry is less effective and where the lateral dispersal of submunitions has already begun. Israel's defense establishment confirming the cluster trend and stating it will continue is a direct acknowledgement that this specific weapon type poses a challenge the current defense architecture was not optimized to address. The USB-2 stealth bombers now in theatre are being specifically identified as the key to addressing the next phase of the threat. Two sources told Reuters that an upcoming second phase of the air campaign will target bunkers storing ballistic missiles and equipment buried deep underground. Iran's remaining missile inventory, the one from which cluster warheads are being launched against Tel Aviv, is not stored in open fields. It is in hardened underground facilities that only the B-2's heavy bunker buster bombs can penetrate at depth. That second phase, according to US officials, is imminent. CENTCOM Admiral Brad Cooper said missile fire is down significantly, but the offensive is set to intensify in the coming days, specifically to address the remaining underground stockpile. Trump's assessment on Thursday was consistent with his pattern of public confidence. He said Iran was running out of ammunition, but predicted it would keep lobbing missiles for a while. That combination, running out of ammunition but still lobbing them, is the operational picture in precise civilian language. Iran's stockpile is being depleted, its launch rate is declining, its large salvo capability is degraded, and it is still firing cluster warheads into Tel Aviv on day 6. The human picture on the ground in Tel Aviv is one that the military scorecard does not fully represent. 12 people wounded by cluster submunitions on Tuesday, a woman in her 40s in moderate condition, 4 others with blast injuries, children celebrating Purim in underground parking garages turned into bomb shelters, firefighters extinguishing burning cars on Tel Aviv streets after missile debris impact, a city of 460,000 people that has been under intermittent missile alert every day for 6 consecutive days, where going to a shelter is no longer an emergency response but a routine part of daily life. Israel has killed Iran's supreme leader, destroyed 80% of its air defenses, neutralized its surface navy, and struck nearly every major military facility in the country, and Iran is still firing cluster missiles at Tel Aviv. That gap between the scale of destruction inflicted on Iran and Iran's continued ability to put weapons into Israeli cities is the defining tension of this war's 6th day. The B-2s are being positioned to close it. Whether they can do so before Iran's remaining cluster warhead stockpile is exhausted through use rather than through destruction is the question that every Israeli civilian taking shelter in an underground parking garage is living with right now.